I should probably go into the Facebook page. There it is.
Excellent.
How's the light on me?
I think there's a tiny bit of delay, so I'm not.
Yeah. That's good enough.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Is my hair okay?
Your hair looks good today.
So who's here? We're a little early, right? We're not quite.
Right on the nose.
Oh no, right on the nose at 3 o'clock. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're staying well and amusing yourself and hopefully getting a little bit of exercise and time outside. Where's everybody calling in Where's everybody videoing in from today? Who's there? Who's out there? Is anybody there? Did anybody watch the premiere of the Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing, the bass show, this weekend? Anybody responding, Julia?
Oh yeah, we've got. Let's see, we've got people from Alberta, Clinton, New York,
Clinton,
Howdy,
California.
Leland says hello, Tom. You look beautiful.
Hi, Leland. I'm sure you're beautiful as well.
Jolynn says howdy, Tom. Nice shirt.
Thank you. It's from the up to the Orvises, as they say in Vermont. You work up to the Orvises? That's what they say. All right. So.
Virginia, South Africa.
Oh, cool. The international crowd is coming in.
I did watch the bass show. Is great. Enjoyed the bass program, Tom.
Oh, good. Glad you guys liked it. This week is
Texas, Colorado, North Texas.
We're kind of on a bass program right now. Tomorrow's show, on World Fishing Network, it premieres, is going to be striped bass, Northeast Coast striped bass, and that'll be on YouTube on Saturday. And then after that comes Euro nymphing. And after that comes small streams, and after that comes a couple on reading the water. So we're going to quickly get into the trout stuff. I know that most of you are waiting for that stuff. So it'll be coming. We're still working on them. We're still putting them together, but we're a few weeks ahead. So we've got shows in the can ready for you. All right. So we're going to tie today a relatively easy fly, and it's a good thing it's easy to tie because you lose a lot of them. It's a nymph. And, unlike something like the Copper John, which we are going to tie, I think, this week, Copper John's a little bit more difficult fly to tie and a little bit more time consuming. The Pat's Rubberlegs is pretty easy. But, you want to fish this fly on the bottom or close to the bottom. Stoneflies don't hatch in the water. They hatch by crawling to the shore. There's a couple species that hatch in the water, but they're pretty rare. So they're always going to be on the bottom or near the bottom. So you don't need an emerger. You want this thing to clunk down there and sink close to the bottom. So you're going to lose a lot of them. And this is a simple fly with inexpensive materials. Other than the hook. Hooks are expensive, but it's a pretty simple fly, and it's just deadly. And it's so simple, but it's so deadly, and it works especially well in early spring. There's a lot of stoneflies moving around this time of year. There are the squallas in the western United States, which are hatching, and I think squallas do actually hatch in the water, and their nymph is kind of brownish, like a Pat's Rubberlegs. And there are just lots of stoneflies out and about. They're little browns and goldens are going to be starting to emerge. And so when they emerge, they start to get active and they're scuttling around on the bottom and they get washed away and they get into the current. Normally a stonefly is going to be hiding underneath a rock in fast water, so it's pretty well protected. But as they start to get active, when they hatch, then they make mistakes and they let go and they get in the current and the trout eat them. A very common way of fishing early in the season is called a turd and a worm. And a turd and a worm is, the turd is the Ted's stone, Ted's Rubberlegs, and the worm is a squirmy wormy or a San Juan worm or a wire worm or something. So turd and a worm is a good combination early season. Can't go wrong with that almost anywhere except maybe in a spring creek. So what I'm gonna do today, I think I'm gonna tie a standard Pat's Rubberlegs or relatively standard Pat's Rubberlegs, and then I'm gonna go into one a little bit more complicated with a bead in it, so that we can do some different things and show you some different techniques. Any questions before we start? Can I use? Yes, you can.
We don't have any questions yet.
No questions?
You know.
Must be you're slow on a Monday. Must be you're still recovering from the weekend. All right. So if there are no further questions, I'm going to start tying. So avert your eyes. The camera's going to move a bit. I got to shuffle things around, fix the lights, and we'll start tying in a second. Don't forget, free shipping on fly materials and fishing stuff, and the giant fly sale right now.
You don't have to answer this right now. I'm sure you'll answer throughout. But Stephen did ask tips and tricks for legs.
Tips and tricks for legs. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for legs.
Great.
Any other questions while I'm fiddling here? Okay. Good. Tips and tricks for legs. Legs are easy. Legs are easy.
All right, we do have a question from Michael when you're ready.
Okay. Yes, Michael.
Are stoneflies common in tailwaters? I mainly see them above, and I wondered if that was common everywhere.
Stoneflies are common wherever there is relatively fast oxygenated water in big rocks. So if there are big rocks and oxygenated water in your tailwater, then you'll have stoneflies. For instance, the Henry's Fork in Idaho is a tailwater, and in the slow stretches, like the railroad ranch, you wouldn't find many stoneflies. But when you go through the Box Canyon, which is fast rocks, there's tons of stoneflies. So it really depends on the habitat, and it can be in tailwaters or other things. How's that right there?
That's good now. Mm-hmm. Maybe just a scotch to the right.
Scotch to the right.
Yep, to the camera's right.
That way. How's that?
Yeah, maybe just so the blue's all in the entire background. There's a slightly...
I can do that. I can do that. Okay. So, a really nice hook to tie this on is a 3X long, what's called a muddler stonefly hook, or a 3X long nymph hook. But there are other hooks you can tie it on here. This is a size 3X long nymph hook. There's another hook that I really like, and this one is called the heavy curved nymph hook. It's a really beefy, heavy hook. It's got a little curve to it. Makes a nice looking stonefly. I'll show you one later that I tied on this one. You can tie it on the regular curved nymph hook. The one hook you probably don't want to use is a shorter shank hook. Some people tie stoneflies on jig hooks, but the jig hooks just don't have a short shank, and it makes the proportions look funny. So you can tie them on a jig hook, but they're going to look better just tying them on a standard 3X long nymph hook. Okay.
We have a question, Tom, from Dave. He's asking, is the vise that you use dependent on the size hook that you're trying on, or?
No, I just switch back and forth on my vices. No particular reason.
Okay.
No particular reason. The jaws on both the Renzetti and the Regal will hold everything from a great big 4.0 saltwater hook down to a 28 trout hook really well. So no, I don't change vices.
Okay.
The ideal hook, Bill is asking about the ideal hook size. Yeah, Bill, probably 6/8 and 10s are the ideal hook sizes. When you get smaller than a 10 with this pattern, the chenille starts to get really bulky, and I don't see this variegated chenille in a finer size. So if you tried to tie this on a 12, with this Pat's Rubberlegs on a 12, it would get kind of bulky. There's no reason you couldn't use a dubbed body instead of chenille and tie the same fly on a smaller hook, but I like them in 10s, and most of my stoneflies I fish in size 8 or 10. Okay, so
Somebody asked about the origin of Copper John, but I figure we'll save that one for when we tie it.
yeah, we'll save that for when we tie it. I don't know why he asked it here, but we'll deal with it when we talk about the Copper John. Fly fish food makes a smaller chenille for Pats. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take my non-toxic wire and I'm going to start somewhere toward the back, quite a ways toward the back, because I'm going to squish this down. And I'm just going to wind that non-toxic wire as close as I can. And I can go pretty close to the eye because I'm going to I don't want to go all the way to the eye, but I'm going to compress this, and then if you break it, usually it'll break in the right place. There, it didn't. So you can either roll it around with your finger or you can cut it off with a pair of wire cutters, and then just use your fingernail to kind of squeeze it in place. Sorry about the noise. I'm having my septic tank pumped today. Very exciting, huh? And then you're going to squeeze these together with your thumbnail and scooch it up a little bit, right about there. Okay? And then to secure this wire, I start in front of there, and I'm going to wind a little bead of thread in front of there. And then I'm going to put my fingernail here, and I'm going to spiral it back. And then I'm going to make another lump here just to hold it in place. And then I'm going to go back and forth a bunch of times with some nice tight turns. And this keeps whatever's on top of there from rolling later on once you tied it in. Okay? So now I'm going to tie in legs. And you can use lots of different kinds of legs. I'm going to use silicone flutter legs on this one.
Tom,
Silicone.
I was asking, do you use head cement on the wound weight to prevent discoloration?
Head cement on the...
You broke the wound weight.
Oh, the wound weight.
The wound weight.
No, I don't think this stuff discolors. I don't think that stuff discolors, so I don't. You could if you want. You want to put head cement on it? Go right ahead. So I'm going to cut, I'm going to actually cut a couple pieces off here because I'm going to need it for tails and antennae and legs. So I got a couple pieces of this silicone flutter leg. And I'm going to go back to the front. And I'm going to loop this like so. And I like to have those antennae sticking up, so I just flipped it. No special reason other than it's easier to tie it on. And then I'm going to just pinch that in place and secure those to the eye like so. And then I'll come up underneath it a couple turns. And now I'm just going to go all the way to the back. I'm going to try to keep those rubber legs on top. And you can go down a little bit on the bend on this fly. And now I got my antennae and my tails. Cut those off for the tails. Now don't forget that stoneflies have pretty short tails, so you don't want to make these too long. I may even trim those down a little bit later. Okay, so got the antennae and the tails, and I'll clip this later to get the antennae. Then I'm going to take a piece of variegated brown and black chenille and expose those little threads there and tie it in.
Steve is asking, is it appropriate to use a bead in this fly?
I'm gonna tie one with a bead next because if you buy a Path Rubberlegs, usually they don't have beads, but I like to put as much weight on a stonefly as I can. So yes, the next one I tie, we're going to use a bead.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Bead's a great idea. In fact, for my own fishing, I use mostly beaded versions. Okay, so we're going to do the legs the easy way, and I'm just gonna kind of even this bump out so that I get a little bit of taper there, and when that chenille jumps up on that lead, it's not going to cause problems. So I'm going to come up about 2/3 of the way to here. I've seen people tie rubber legs in the middle of a stonefly, but the legs actually emanate from the thorax area, so just a little bit more realistic. Doesn't really matter. And I'm going to take a piece of this silicone flutter legs, even them out, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to tie. This is the easy way now, guys. I'm just going to tie them on top of the hook. So, and nice thing about that lead underbody is that it gives you a little bit more to tie on. It gives you a little bit more room. Okay, so and I'm going to wind back a little bit on these rear legs. just a bit. And you want to trim these a little bit at this point because you don't want to trim them too much, but if they're too long, they get in the way. I'm not going to trim them now. I'm not going to worry about it. And then you just wind your chenille, and this is the trickiest part. So I like to pull the rubber legs out of the way as I'm coming up here with the chenille. Oop. And then don't come too tight to those rubber legs on the one behind them, because I want these legs to curve back and then I want the front ones to curve forward. So now I'm going to put some back a little bit. And then I forgot to do something, but that's okay because you can do it while you're... here, and then I'm going to pull these legs back, but I'm not going to come up against those too much because I want them to stick forward, because that's what a stonefly does. And then I screwed up, guys. I screwed up. I didn't advance my thread. Easy fix at this point. So I gotta bring my thread back up. If you're tying along with me, I apologize. And those were looking so good. And we can adjust these legs. So I'm going to come up here.
Mike was asking if you fish this with a tight line or with an indicator.
Both. It's a nymph. You can fish it any way you want. Tight line, indicator, yep, either way. And then I'm going to take one more turn to finish it off right up there at the head. Tie that chenille off. And your rubber legs are going to get in the way. Just move them out of the way. Probably 3 really tight pulls on that chenille. Trim it off. I cut my thread. Oh, you're all laughing now because you think it never happens to the rest of us. I can't believe I cut my thread. Oh, now I gotta rethread my bobbin. Ugh. Everybody laughing? Are there a lot of LOLs out there?
No one's LOL'd at you, Tom. I think they're all intently tying.
Good. Okay, so luckily that didn't...
You might not even have noticed.
It didn't unwind, so I can catch it, luckily.
Ted just said, you just made me very happy.
I figured I would. All right, hopefully. Okay, now you can snip your antennae. You can even them out. And you can pull your legs down into position. Look at it from the top. You can see these kind of point forward and these kind of point back. So, looks stonefly-ish. And then whip finish. And you can whip finish here, or you can whip finish underneath those antennae, however you want. I'll go underneath the antennae. And then you can just hold these out of the way when you whip finish. And then you got to trim your legs. So how do you trim them? I don't know. How do you trim them? Do you trim them long? Do you trim them short? I like them about... You want enough legs so that they wiggle, but you don't want it to be... You don't want to look like a daddy long leg spider. and these rubber legs are just to give the impression of, something moving in the water when this thing moves through the water. And you can, if you really want to get fancy, you can raise them up like this, and then you make sure they're even, but I don't worry about it. Okay, and then get your legs in place. Kind of important on this fly is to, when you put your head cement, and thank you again, Michael, my head cement still opens up beautifully. Okay, and let me just finish this head cement here. And be generous with this head cement. It's not going to hurt anything with the chenille. And then you may want to put a drop on top there too, just to hold those legs in place. You could have put epoxy. You could have put epoxy under there before, but there you go. That's Ted's Rubberlegs. So
nice.
It's not a hard fly to tie. Just getting those legs in place. That's the easy way to put the legs in. Now we'll go to the advanced way. Yeah, and you said we had questions, Julia?
We do.
Okay.
John's asking, must it be dead drifted or did those swim?
Stoneflies don't swim. Stoneflies are very poor swimmers. So I would try to achieve a dead drift. Well, I don't know if it is any more effective. It's probably as effective. I don't think fish get a real close look at these things. They're fished in fast water and they're drifting by pretty quickly. If tying something more realistic like a Kaufman's makes you happy, then use those. I don't like to be emotionally invested in my flies because I lose them. So, but I do really like occasionally tying some realistic stoneflies. They're fun, but I don't think you need them. If I'm going fishing and I want a fishing fly that I know I'm going to lose, then I'll tie this. If I want a fly that's going to hang around my box for a while and I might show off to some people, then maybe I tie something more realistic. I keep calling it Ted. I keep calling it Ted and Pat. There's a Ted Stone and there's a Pat's Rubberlegs, and they're relatively similar. So, sorry about that.
Tim Johnson had a great suggestion. He said that the external thread snip makes him think that fly first aid and troubleshooting could be great video or maybe a Facebook Live. Like how to save trimmed thread, instantly secured hackle pull out, tails won't lay right, etc.
You tell that Tim Johnson guy that it's in my new fly tying book, how to save a broken thread. You tell him if he had bought my new fly tying book, he would know. Tim Johnson. And you guys, we know Tim quite well. He's a good friend, so we wouldn't make fun of somebody unless we loved him, right, Tim? Okay, so let's go to black. Yes, of course, John. You can tie him in black. There's a black one right there, and you know what else? You can tie him in a golden configuration like that. Or you can tie them in plain brown like that. Or you can tie them in orange if you want, like that. These are just ones that I've tied recently, getting ready for this moment. You guys know that I practice before I do these. I don't just sit down at the vise. I spend days practicing these patterns. Even though it doesn't look like it, I spend days practicing these patterns. All right. So let's tie a golden variation. golden stone variation. How about that? Just for a different color. So, and I'm going to use a different hook. Hey guys, you can tie this with any color you want. It may not be a Pat's Rubberlegs, but you can tie it in any color you want. Okay, so I'm gonna tie this one on that heavy curved nymph hook because I really like this hook. And I'm gonna put a bead on it. I'm gonna put a fairly big bead on it. In fact, I'm gonna put the biggest bead I can put on it without slipping over the eye because I want this thing to clunk. Early season, I think this one's too big. Whoa, yeah. Now there is going to be a heavy stonefly. All right, so to start this one, you put your hook in the vise with the bead on it, and then you get the bead out of the way. Just flip it back. Then you start your thread. If you want antennae on this fly, does it matter? No, probably not, but they look better with antennae. So I'm going to start my thread way up there. And I'm going to change out my colors here. I'm going to use some of these speckled silicone flutter legs because these are good golden stone color. I'm just cutting myself a couple strands here. And this one, you can't do the head and the tail at the same time, like the other one. So it's a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to just cut a short piece of the leg material. And I'm going to fold it over and tie it right in front of the eye. And try to scooch it around until it sits on top. And then notice this isn't very long. Stoneflies don't have big long antennae, so I'm not going to make this one that long. And then I'm going to come in under here for a couple turns, and I'm going to leave it. I'm going to cut this here. I'm going to build up a little bump here of thread. And then I'm going to whip finish. Would Daiichi 1730 hook?
Would a Daiichi
Yeah.
1730 hook be a good hook?
I don't know. I don't know Daiichi numbers, so I can't tell you. I don't have them memorized. And I'm kind of busy. I can't go to the Google machine right now, so I don't know. It would probably be a fine hook. As long as it's 3 or 4x long, it'll be fine. Okay, so I whip finish. And I'm going to slide my bead up here till it goes to those antennae there. Now I'm going to put my wire on. Where's my wire? There's my wire. I'm going to put my non-toxic wire on there. And you don't want to jam this, unlike a lot of flies, you don't want to jam this wire way up inside that bead because then it's going to push on those antennae too much. But it's not going anywhere. You're going to squeeze that into there. Okay. So this is going to be, this is going to be the ultra heavy clunker. This is the early season fly. And then I'm going to start my thread behind that wire, form a little bump so that the wire doesn't slide back. And then I'm going to go back and forth over there. Just cross wind it. And you can put some head cement on here now if you want. I'm not a big fan of using head cement in the middle of tying. And I think that if you learn to tie properly, There are very few times when you need to use head cement in the middle of a fly. I guess it may be my commercial background, but anything that slows you down like that is not a good thing in commercial tying. And then I'm going to form another loop in the back. Doesn't have to be a loop, but it makes it easier. And try to keep those legs on top if you can. And then angle them a little bit toward you as you go back down. And with this curved hook, stoneflies often have a curved shape curled shape in the water. So I like to get a little curl to the body. And then we're gonna trim the rubber legs about even with the wire. And then we're gonna take a different color chenille, kind of a golden stone chenille.
Scott's asking, when pulling those legs while wrapping them, lock them down better and prevent rolling of the rubber legs?
We're pulling them. I don't know. They're not going anywhere. I didn't pull them. I don't think it matters unless you wanted to make the body a little slimmer. I'm not worried about that here because stoneflies have a fairly wide, fairly big body. Let's see if I can get this a little closer. That's still in focus? Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I got my chenille. I'm going to expose the core like so. I'm going to tie it in. And then when I come forward here, I'm just going to bury that rubber and just try to eliminate that jump where it goes up onto the wire. So I'm just going to taper it a little bit there with some thread. All right, good enough. Now I'm going to come up to about the halfway point. And I'm going to take one set of legs. This is the one at a time leg tie in way. And cut yourself a leg that is longer than you need, but not terribly much longer. So maybe like that long. Okay? And here I'm going to just lay it on top. I'm going to cross over this way. And then I'm going to cross over the other way. So it's like a figure 8. So I've got that secured on top of there. And I'm going to pull these legs back a little bit and wind up against them because I want these back legs to angle back. And I can fix that with the chenille too, but you can see they're angling back a little bit. Then I'm going to come forward about one turn of chenille, about one width of chenille, and tie in a second set of legs. And this one, I want to stick straight out. If you look at a stonefly, they're often... the back legs are often slanted back, and the middle ones are kind of sticking straight out, and then the front ones angle forward. So now I got these angling back a little bit, these straight. Then I'm going to come up right against the bead, right up against it, and tie in a third set of legs. I have to cut another set of legs here. These I'm going to put right up against the bead. And you know what helps here when you're doing this is to shorten up on your bobbin, because then you can get it in, you can sneak it in there between those legs a little easier. Just a little trick. Oops. Yeah, you got to fiddle with these. The nice thing about these legs is you can fiddle with them and you can move them around. Now, if you want, you can put some glue on them now. You want to glue them, you go right ahead. They're not coming out. You can glue them if you want, but they ain't coming out. So I'm not going to glue them. But you want to put, makes you feel better to put some UV cure epoxy on there or some head cement. You go right ahead. Okay, now we're going to just wrap the chenille. And we're going to hold on to those tails and make sure they don't get screwed up. And we're going to take, and you can, you know, as you wind, just get those rubber legs out of the way, just like so. And just like the other one, come up too close to those rear legs. But then when you come around front, pull them back. So now I got that nice rear leg backward. And then you're going to make another turn in between and just kind of leave those legs there. And then you're going to take a last turn in the same spot, and that is going to force those front legs. So now you got it. And maybe, no, that's too much. 2 turns is enough. Then I'm just gonna thread Tim Johnson. I'm going to use my thread as a guide. I didn't cut my thread. And then I'm just gonna wind behind those legs. And yeah, you're winding on top of the chenille, but that's okay. And then whip finish. Helps to have one of these long whip finishers too for when you're doing something like that. And I should have put a little bit more chenille on there, but that's all right. Then you're gonna cut that. Cut that. Now look at how nice those look. Even those out. Even the tails out. Cut these back a little bit. The middle legs, I think, are a little shorter. Is it the front legs are a little shorter? I don't know. Doesn't matter. The fish are this is gonna be going by the fish so fast that it doesn't matter. So there's a variation of the, I almost said dead stone. Maybe this is dead stone. That's a variation of the Pat's Rubber Legs in a golden stone. Tie this in black. You can tie it in purple. You can tie it in any color you want. And I don't know what colors work. I have never fished this color before, but I think it's going to work well. I'm going to experiment with it. You know, the other thing you could do if you wanted to get more realistic is you could put a coat of epoxy over there to make it look like wing cases. Wouldn't that be cool? But I'm not gonna, because that's too much work. Okay. Rubber legs will slide right out of hardened UV resin, so make sure they are tied in well. You know, Ted, I'm glad you brought that up, because I saw where Tim Flagler put rubber legs in and just set them in place with UV resin, and all mine pulled out. And I emailed him this morning to ask him if there was a trick to that, and he hasn't gotten back to me, so I don't know. So be careful. There is a method of just wrapping these legs, 3 times around, and putting UV resin on there, and then just cutting them. But they may pull out. These are not going to pull out. and these are just thread. That has head cement up there, but these are just thread. They're not going to pull out. They're going to fall apart. Oh, another thing, most of us are using silicone legs instead of rubber legs. You can still get rubber legs, but rubber legs deteriorate fairly quickly in a fly box. The UV gets to them and breaks them down. So if you do have some old rubber legs, they're certainly fine to use. Just bear in mind that they may not last as long as the silicone legs. Turn over some rocks on your local stream and match what you see. Tim Johnson Gallery. Thank you, Tim. That's a great suggestion that I should have thought of. Is just turn over some rocks and see what's in your local stream, but also don't rule out an oddball color. You never know if purple might work. We don't know how the fish react to these things, and you never know. So experiment. Tie some wild colors. See what happens. But to be on the safe side, stick with the goldens and the browns and the blacks. Those are the ones that you know are going to match the flies of the moment. Are there any other questions? Everybody still tying?
No other questions.
No other questions? No other questions. Wow.
That guy looks good.
Yeah, they're kind of cool looking. They're kind of satisfying because they're easy to tie, and they wiggle. And they're very effective. When I first saw Pat's Rubberlegs, I didn't think much of the fly because I thought it just looked too simple. And it's simple, but it works. They work great.
Johnson wants to know what your sign is.
My sign, gone fishing.
Well played.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for watching today. What are we tying on Wednesday, Julia? Is it? It's the Comparadon, right? I think it's Comparadon on Wednesday. Not Comparadon. Sparkledon. I believe Sparkledon.
Yep. And tomorrow, Phil's gonna be interviewing Jim about our approach shoe.
Oh, hey, you guys, you should really watch that because Jim Kershaw knows his stuff, and the approach shoe is a very cool while waiting shoe. I spent a lot of time in them, and I love them.
Tom, before
Yeah.
you jump off, if you wouldn't mind answering the Wiltshire fly fisher asked, do you fish this pattern for carp too?
I never have, but I think it would be a good carp fly. It's got rubber legs, and it sinks. Yeah, probably would be. Good idea. Wiltshire fly fisher. Maybe I will try fishing it for carp. Yep. Oh, that brings up a good point. This is supposedly a stonefly imitation, but I'll tell you what, kids. When this thing's in the water, it looks an awful lot like a crayfish too. With those wiggly legs and that big body. So don't rule out, just because you don't see stoneflies, don't rule out that using this for a crayfish imitation. The fish are going to decide if they want it or not anyways. But it makes a good crayfish imitation, makes a good large mayfly, like a hex mayfly imitation as well. So, or maybe even a March brown. So, we call it a stonefly, but don't assume that the fish think it's a stonefly. They might think it's something else. Mark, would you tie this on a jig fly? I would tie it on a jig hook, Mark, but most jig hooks are short shank, and the proportions aren't going to look right for a stonefly. Yes, you could tie it. It's not going to have the long profile of a stonefly, but yes, you could tie it on a jig fly. Okay. Thank you, everyone. It's really a real pleasure to have you all here, and we really appreciate you tuning in and tying with us. And I hope you all constructed a nice Ted's Rubberlegs, Pat's Rubberlegs.
Thanks, guys.